Hello everyone, welcome to my new video about the changes for the new edition to Kill Team. Here with me, I've got my friend Atri. We'll do some footage in the background of one of our matches for the new edition. So we're going to be running over the different talking points, but this guy, you should listen to what he has to say. He's number one for Inquisition in the US right now.
Right now being the operative term.
No,
It's one of those things where on ITC, it's never statistically significant, so
it'll
you
be
play
that
enough
way
tournaments.
forever, I'm sure. He'll continue to
Yeah,
see
right?
great tournament success. Okay, well, first up, the changes from shapes to numbers for the inches. So I personally love this change. I think that shapes were terrible. I hated circles not being one, triangles not being three, squares not being four. It was horrid. Big fan of actual numbers. It allows for more variety and is less confusing.
I agree with this. I think this is one of the more generally one of the positive quality of life changes they made. I get like the idea of using something that isn't like a number because not everyone uses or like intuitively understands the imperial system. That being said, like it doesn't really matter. I'm glad that it's so much simpler to understand.
Yeah, for sure. I give this change a 10 out of 10.
I agree. A 10 out of 10 seems right here.
All right, on to the next change, which is more terrain equipment. So they changed equipment overall. We'll get into that, but they've added mines, they've added ladders, they've added portable barricades, heavy barricades. I think portable barricades are especially funny. Ladders are especially funny. The idea that the technology of the far future involves a fast deploying ladder is quite funny to me. I think that's peak warfare.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of like along the lines of in Warhammer, like they use swords because they're cool, you know?
Absolutely.
I think 40,000 years into the future, or whatever it is, 38,000, they're they're just like not using technology's gotten so stagnant, it doesn't really matter. Ladders are cool, very useful tools. Famously
Absolutely.
analog, so
So I quite like this change. I like the ability to influence the map in more ways, and I actually think that the heavy barricade is a really, really good change. I love that one. I like the fact that you can always have heavy cover in your deployment zone to keep you safe from snipers and the like. And this means that even if you get a really dreadful map, you can then alter it and do something about it. And especially for mandrakes who can now put down an area of shadow on into the dark boards and stuff like that. I think that is a great change personally.
see, I agree. I like it kind of in a black box. It's interesting to be able to like it makes the game more interesting to be able to influence it in more ways. I'm not sure if I love how much stuff there is. I think one of my favorite things about Kill Team is that there are a lot of degrees of freedom, but there are definitively a limited number of degrees of freedom, if you kind of understand what I mean. I think the more options you add into a game like this, it gets more fun to a point, but it also like the mental load increases exponentially.
I think that's a good point. I think also razor wire is perhaps a
Mm.
problematic one. I mean, we used it in our match just then, and it wasn't too bad, but first of all, you can completely block doors in the way that you place it, which I think is not fun for anyone. And 5-inch move teams like Hernkin Jaegers, they just have a rough time against it. So I guess they just concede.
Yeah, I mean, in our game, it was vaguely and it was reasonably annoying that I couldn't push up the middle. I can't imagine how miserable that would be if I didn't have a 6-inch move. Like, probably it does need to be changed, I think, but I'm not exactly sure how they like changed or taken out of the game. One of the two. I
I
think
think
it's cool to have a piece of terrain that doesn't give cover that slows you down. I think that's good game design. Just maybe not by 4 inches.
I think 4 inches is too much. Yeah, it's an intuitive rules design because when you look at barbed wire, the rule which it would have springs to mind as like it slows you down. So in that sense, I think it makes sense, but for sure, I think it has turned out to be a little bit too powerful or a little bit too situationally oppressive.
Yeah, I think maybe if they like when I think of barbed wire, slows me down is one thing. I think also it would be interesting if they added in the rule maybe that if you take a certain number of mortal wounds, you can just ignore it, or like maybe you only lose 2 inches.
Yeah, that would be cool. But I like mines, I like heavy barricades, I like ladders. So overall, I give this change an 8 out of 10.
Yeah, I'll give it a 7, I think.
Okay, so onwards, equipment is universal. They have made all equipment for everyone. You don't just have to allocate it to a specific guy. I think I quite like this change. I was one of those people that would do the Spanish thing and use rubber bands to indicate which guy had which equipment. But honestly, it was just a pain trying to track what your opponent had done. And this, I feel, does provide you with more impactful decisions, but sort of less of them. Although I personally feel there's still the similar amount of skill to choosing them.
I think I like the new equipment. I like how it's all like it applies to everybody, which this is good. I think this is good game design. Being able to not having to like position your grenades around the board. I did enjoy that part of Kill Team 21. I think it's probably better to just have access to them. I like the in general. I like the faction equipment. I think it's all pretty flavorful. Like Inquisitorial Rosette, it's fun. I like being able to move my quarry. That's a good thing I can do. But yeah, I think overall, I think the way they handle equipment is better. I think I'd give it probably a 9.
I think I'd also give it a 9 out of 10. I'm a big fan. They've lost a little and gained a lot from this, in my opinion.
Yeah, exactly.
So change to initiative. Now, initiative, the first player gets to go first, and the second player gets an extra command point at the start of the turn. There's some crackhead in the London community that was ranting about this in some video, but he's always complaining about something. So I personally quite like it. There's more of a decision involved.
I agree with this. I've had enough matches now where like someone has elected to go second to get the extra command points that I think it's probably a good decision. I will say the way they're calling initiative now, I think is counterintuitive. So when we say initiative, we're talking about like who goes first in a turn.
Yeah.
In the first turn of the game, that used to be called like, are you going to take attacker defender, right?
Yeah.
I think that's also called initiative now, and I really don't like that.
Yeah, having multiple terms for the same thing is confusing.
Yeah.
Sorry, multiple names for different term, the same name for multiple things.
Like I think the initiative. I wish they had kept attacker defender. I think that made a lot of sense. But I like the if you choose to go second, you get an extra command point. I think that's good game design.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I give this change a 7 out of 10.
I think for me it's probably going to be the same. It loses just because I miss attacker defender.
Fair enough. Okay, so on to the scouting options. I'm a big fan of the new scouting options. I think that equip's a cool one. I think that each of them have their place, and just generally, I've seen each of them used before. I think equip's probably the strongest, but the fact I say probably, I feel like I was playing scouting option 3 almost every game last time, and I think it's a bit less predictable.
Yeah, I think the fact that in 21, like the dash was usually correct was a little boring. I do really like how. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it's nice to see some variety in terms of what people will do with the start of their turn now, I think.
Yeah, I think especially because it's gone from like one being barricade to one being equipment, which could also just be a barricade. I think that's a good change. Which ties back into like the more terrain equipment. There's more things to predict in this case. I think that's cool. I've been using the free ploy bunch, which generally people are caught off guard by. And I think it's fun.
I think I give this change a 10 out of 10. I'm really happy with it.
I'd agree with that. I think a 10 out of 10 is right here.
Okay, 3 objectives. So they changed it from 6 down to 3. I don't know about this one. I feel I quite like 6 objectives. 3 is, in a way, a bit more simple and it's more newbie friendly, and I guess there's pros and cons to it, but I, for one, am not super sure I prefer this to 6.
Yeah, I find 3 objectives makes it a lot more swingy, and I'm not sure I'm hugely in love with that. Like, with 6 objectives, you could feasibly go 3-3 for 4 turning points in a row, which, in fairness, also maybe isn't great. Like, at least with 3 objectives, you're always forcing a fight, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, I feel like they've made some efforts to sort of make the game a bit more aggressive towards the sort of middle turns and force players to come out and fight each other. Because I guess at high-level play, you were seeing a lot of cagey and perhaps less interesting games.
Yeah, I mean, three objectives. I was disappointed when I heard about it at first. After playing it, it's cool. Like it is interesting to it's interesting to see your enemy in a game of Kill Team, I think. Um so I am on board with this now after playing it a bunch.
I think I give this change a 6 out of 10.
I think I'll give it a 7 or an 8, I think. Maybe a 7.5, call it that. I do like this change overall.
Fair enough. On to 9 missions. So they used to just be loot, secure, and capture. Tragically, loot has survived, so I'm very upset about that. But I think some variety is nice, and it's good to see a lot more missions. Although I don't know if all of them are super balanced. I've not had time to try them out each yet, but of the ones I have done, they seem pretty good.
Yeah, I'm one thing I did like about having three missions is I knew what all three missions were. Now they've removed capture, so I know what two of the missions do, and every other mission feels like a variation on secure.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that's fantastic. I don't love the like constantly having to reread the mission. That just might be on my end though.
I guess it's going to be a learning curve, and it'll get easier throughout the edition.
Yeah,
I definitely felt like there was one missing from the 3 set. Like, you know, some kind of one where they would remove an objective from the board of the 6 would have been cool. So definitely a few more options is nice, but
yeah,
I don't know. 9 feels like quite a drastic swing from 3.
I agree with that. I think actually we might want to jump to the talking about the counteract changes because no capture means that like I thought when I saw there was no capture that elites would be a little worse off.
Yeah, but now they can tap it with that.
Yeah, so we should probably talk about the changes to counteract right now.
Yeah, although I guess first we rate the 9
Yes,
missions.
I think
I
so.
give that 7 out of 10, I think.
I'll give it a 6. I'm not a huge fan of 7 new things, right?
Yeah.
7.
Makes sense. So counteract, I like this as a change. I like the fact that the way in which teams play after they've been out activated is that they still sort of keep playing. Like they do less powerful actions, as if they're a bit like expended. I much prefer this over just if the guy can, he can shoot.
I think this is true. Obviously, generally a huge bluff to elites. That's fine though. I think they were bad in KT21, and it is more interesting again. I think that like you can do so many things after you're out activated. Even though in our match I just shot a bunch, it was nice that I had an option to do something else if I wanted to. And I can see elites doing this all the time, right? Like charge fighting on a point and then tapping it in counteracts.
Yeah,
Seems strong.
it's nice. I like that change. I give it, I think, a 9 out of 10.
I agree with that. I think a 9 out of 10 is good here.
Okay, so on to new TAC ops. So they changed TAC ops. Now, rather than having 3 faction ones and a bunch of different archetypes, there are 4 archetypes. They've each got 3 different ones, and you just choose one, which can give you 6. I don't know about that. I think I really liked building a little set of 3. I think there was a lot of variation. From what I've heard, a lot of people don't think that they're especially balanced, and I've looked at some of them and gone, I don't think I would ever play that.
Yeah, I think they aren't balanced. There are some that are just bad, I think. I will say that the way TAC Ops played in Kill Team 21 was like they were the three smaller missions you were playing, right? Beyond the primaries.
Yeah.
I think there are enough missions in the game, things you need to do in the game now with the primer like the kill op and the critical op, that having only one secondary mission is probably enough. There might have just been too many things to think about if you had more than one. I will say some of them are pretty cool. I think the changes to recover item are interesting.
Yeah.
I also think like some of them are bad. I think wiretap is not a good one, despite how funny it is.
Well, it's really tragic that we've lost such gems as no witnesses from Inquisition, I think.
Yes, that's maybe the most tragic part about this. The fact that that's now basically the kill up, but worse, is a little tragic.
Yeah, I think I give it a 5 out of 10. I'm not massively pleased with it, but it seems like it's okay.
I think reasonably 5 out of 10 is probably fine. You know, if we discount my beloved no witnesses going away.
Yeah. Over to nothing scoreable turn 1. I don't know. I mean, I guess they really wanted to remove super aggressive turn ones where people would lose operatives and it's part of the changes to indirect and everything, but it does make for quite a boring first turn if it's all set up. And I've heard some people saying we don't really leave more than 3 inches outside of our drop zone in our matches, which doesn't sound like an especially fun match.
Yeah, I think this feels like the game is now being compressed into 3 turns, and I don't love that. I don't think Alpha Strikes are necessarily good game design. I think it was kind of fun to watch out for them, but I'm pretty sure, generally speaking, people don't like being shot off the board turning 1.1. So
I guess the argument was that you got used to Alpha Strikes and learned to play around them, although the get good scrub argument is not especially forgiving to new players and won't generate more interest for the hobby as a whole. So
yeah, I mean, Alpha Strikes, the fact that they existed, probably bad game design. But I don't think the solution was make turning point 1 boring.
yeah, I think I give this change a 4 out of 10.
I think I give it maybe a 3.
The kill op. So the kill op, supposedly putting the kill back in kill team. You now score points. There's a whole table for it, but you essentially score points the more operatives you kill. And this is good news for me. I was a very bloodthirsty, aggressive player in second, and it was especially my weakness that I would perhaps kill operatives instead of scoring points when I really needed to. So for sure, the future bodes well, but I think that there used to be much more of an opportunity cost between scoring points or getting kills, and I now think you'll be taking the getting kills a lot of the time, which perhaps feels like it's removing part of the skill of balancing those two to me.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of nuance, and it was kind of a fun nuance in knowing that getting kills was not actually the best strategy all the time. Like, I kind of liked when getting kills was a strategy to deny your opponent points rather than to score them. That being said, I think the kill op's been handled really well. I think it is very fun to kill things in my dice killing game. So overall, I'm not too pressed by it. I think this is a good change to the game. I think incentivizing killing your opponent is probably a good way for this game to go.
Yeah, I think I give it a 7 out of 10.
I'm going to give it an 8.
A primary op. So now at the start of the game, you really gamble on it. You select one of the 3 things, either the kill op, the tac op, or the objectives, and choose to double up points secretly. You won't really ever choose kill op unless you're a real baller, but you are essentially putting stock in what you think you're going to be good at. So you spec into a play style, essentially. I quite like it. I think knowing what you're good at and playing to your strengths is definitely a fun way to play the game.
I agree. I mean, getting an extra potentially 1 to 3 points on something, that's cool. Especially like it gives you more variation in the way you play a team. I think that's cool. It also, I think, kind of functions like the second and third tac op from KT21, where like you're really the way you choose your 3 tac ops like really tells you how to play the game. Now, whichever one you want to make your primary op, like it might be pretty clear to your opponent pretty quickly, but it's also a little more tricky.
Yeah.
Definitely putting it on kill up, probably wrong. It
Wrong,
doesn't seem correct. Yeah, very funny. Probably the new no witnesses, right?
Absolutely. You should be running it every game.
I think so, honestly.
So yeah, I like this change. I think it should probably allow for closer games, given that you can potentially pick tac op and then play a more sort of reliable game on that front. I give this change a 9 out of 10. I'm really happy with it.
I think I'm going to give it a 10. I think it's a really good change for the game.
Changes to weapons. So flamers and plasmas. Plasmas saw a nerf. They're no longer AP2. The normal damage for the non-supercharged profile went down, and the supercharged profile gained lethal 5-up. Yeah, it was for the best. It was always plasma. You would never run anything other than plasma. So I think that was a healthy change to perhaps inspire variety. I still think it's probably the best weapon. And flamers went from 5 attacks on 2s to 4 attacks on 2s, but instead of being 2-2 damage, they went to 3-3 damage. They gained a bit of extra range, and Torrent is now better.
And also they gain Saturate.
And they gain Saturate, which is the ignore cover retaining dice. So yeah, I like this change. I prefer how things are now, and I like that there's a bit more of a decision involved.
I agree. I think it's true plasma, very much dominant KT21. I don't love when my Marine killing weapon doesn't consistently kill a Marine. But that's because I don't play Marines, so it's kind of a biased take.
I think that's also more of a problem with the elite teams rather than with the weapons, I have to say.
That's probably true. The fact that they can knock down P1,
Yeah,
some of them,
we'll get to that in a minute, but
yeah. But I think overall, change to flamers is great. They should have always had saturate. I like them having the extra 2 inches.
yeah, I give it
Um,
a 9 out of
yeah,
10, I think.
yeah. I think this is overall a good change. I'll give it an 8 out of 10.
So different keywords. I mean, they've changed the language for some of them, but seek is not as common, and silent is now worse. So seek not being as common is great. It sucked to have to measure out 18 inches or however far it was from the Brood Brother Sapper and go, right, I can't leave my drop zone. Not fun, not great. Really punishing for teams with less activations. And silence, yeah, it should be like that. The fact it's now really once a game. You should not be walking multiple guys into the sniper, but sometimes they were really oppressive. And I think the fact that they can't do that the whole game is a good thing.
Well, is it all of the snipers or just some of the guard ones? I thought.
Pretty much every sniper, I believe, although there might be a couple exceptions.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, especially now with Vantage giving conceal, right, or giving one cover save.
Yeah, Vantage now gives cover, which is
Like,
kind of odd.
yeah, I don't love that, and especially with snipers. If this had happened in KT-21, I remember. I think there's like a Morok narrative mission which has the special rule that the Vantage had cover, and it was just a nightmare to play against.
Yeah.
But I do think that Seek not being as common, I think, is also great. Grenades not having it, a little bit heartbreaking, but probably for the best.
Yeah.
Now that they're just better guns as opposed to significantly better guns for a lot of teams. And
Yeah.
also, like, Silent, I think also was a little too oppressive in the right teams. Like the Phobos being able to shut down an entire area with it, kind of terrifying. So I think they can still do it.
Yeah. I like the changes overall. I think I give it an 8 out of 10.
I think so too. 8 out of 10 seems right.
Okay, so on to our final point, the elite meta. So there isn't exactly a single change. There's no rule in the book which says elites are now the best teams in the game. It's a combination of things. The changes to objectives are great for them. The counteract, the fact all the teams except Phobos have gained 2 extra wounds, the fact that there's no indirect around. I'm sure there's a bunch more I'm forgetting. The fact that some of the teams have access to stuff that turns down piercing is crazy. I mean, Inquisition can switch it off, but for most Horde teams, when your Plasma doesn't even remove a save, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, I think that one in particular is kind of insane because everything else makes them already more survivable, and now they just like turn off the anti-tank weapons, so to speak.
Yeah, it's a problem. I don't like the fact that your anti-tank weapons don't do what they're supposed to.
Yes, I mean, I struggle to see how most Horde teams can deal with this. It just seems like elites are now like actually terrifying to fight, which I think is a cool change. I like the ludonarrative cohesion of like the big space marine being scary to normal humans. That being said, I think it's been overtuned. There's maybe one or two too many buffs they've received.
Yeah, elites were kind of a joke for most of the last edition, so they do need their time in the sun, but I think all of it's too much, and personally, I'm not super excited about elite meta. I think it's inherently perhaps a little less interesting than the Horde meta was.
Yeah, I think once like the big tournaments start up again, it'll be interesting to see how that plays, because I mean, NYO's coming up, and I'm pretty sure we're going to see a lot of elite teams there.
Undoubtedly, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, we'll see. Generally speaking, I am not a huge fan. That being said, I think also elites probably deserve their time to shine. Maybe with a little fewer buffs, so it's a little more balanced. But you know, I'm not going to begrudge them this.
No, I think they need to tone down some of it, but still have them being quite powerful would be nice.
Yeah, one thing I will say, it was kind of a crazy high surviving when I tried to game out as the Nemesis Claw, surviving a blooded melt-a-gun shot.
Yeah.
That felt great. It also felt a little disgusting.
Yeah, I bet the blooded player was not happy.
Yeah, like 2 hits getting in with a melt-a-gun, and if I didn't make it, or it was 3 hits, I made 1 save. And the fact that I survived that was great.
I think I give the elite meta a 4 out of 10 as a change. I'm not super excited for it.
I'll give it a 5.
They need their time in the sun, but it's way too much.
Yeah, I think I think it'll be nice to see maybe one tournament or whatever how many tournaments it'll take for them to maybe be pushed down a little, but it's going to be cool to watch. I think for maybe one or two of those tournaments.
All right. Well, I think that wraps up more or less all of our changes. Did we miss anything? Let us know in the comments in a civil way, please. But thank you very much for joining, Atri.
Thank you for having me.
Insightful comments as always. It's been a joy to talk to you.
You too.